Let's see. Okay, we have this area here. Okay. Hey, onegaishimasu. Okay. Come on in a little closer, but socially distanced. Okay, right? I was listening or watching actually a YouTube video today that was posted on Facebook. It was Robert Fraser Sensei, and he was giving a question and answer lecture to some people, I think, in Europe. So one of the things I thought we do is to start out, and his contention was that, you know, there's a lot of staff work, but he was talking about how Osensei started it, okay? So the first part is very close to, I've included that in our 30 movement set, but there's other things we can do, okay? For example, we start out as we do here. Now, the first motion is rightward up. And then the next motion is leftward down. And then boom, that's that's pretty much the way we do it there. But left, right, up, down. So that's kind of what I do this, this is a version, my version of what Osensei did. Okay. All right. And Robert Fraser said he did it a lot. Okay. And so movement number one, the first couple are very much like the 30. Second motion, third motion, fourth motion, boom. Left first, right, back to the center, up and down. Okay, so try that a couple times on your own. It builds off of the 30. Okay, so you run the danger if you do something too weird, you attract weird energy, even though so. Inwardly, the sound su, su, goes to oo, su, oo. Rightward up, ah. Leftward down, oo. Leftward down, oh. Ooh. So repeat. To the left. Up. E. Apparently, Osensei would do a leftward. Re. E. And then G. So that's the Su chant that he did. Apparently, he would do it with. And so I don't know if that's the way he did it, but I do it that way. Okay. So, Su. Su. Ooh. Su goes to ooh. Su. Su. Big, big, big ooh. Beginning to personalize here. Su. Ah. In Japanese word, ame is heaven. Ah. Oh. Earthward. back to U. And then this is like, setting coordinates. E, re, I, and gi. Okay? So I'd like you to try that a couple times. It's coordinating the actual physical motions with su to u, a, o, e, re, I, gi. It takes a little bit of practice, so give that a try, okay? Okay, so exactly what that is. I mean, a lot of the movements that you see associated with Aikido, but Osensei was about the only one that really did that was something he did, and he combined the movements of the staff or spear with chanting and sounds, the kototama. Okay, and so exactly what that is. It's probably a real important sort of misogi, and it's kind of tied to the mythological creation of the universe and the islands of Japan. So, there's a lot going on there. What I'm going to do, let me, physical weight. Yeah, boom, boom. Okay. So my understanding of it is that that's what Osensei did to stand in a place he called the floating bridge of heaven. Whatever, boom, whatever. Boom, boom. Right, right. Now you have, the heaven spirit, but you also have earth, dense matter. Boom. But the floating bridge is between the two. Okay. In other words, okay. See, if you descend into matter, you're standing on matter. Okay. If you float off into the spirit realm, but right in the middle of it. Okay. There's and so the Su primordial original being consciousness, U beginnings of individual consciousness tied to it. Spirit and matter separating from that original. Ah, oh. And right in the middle of that is the floating bridge, right? So you're forming the cross, which is the coordinates. It's not anything that really exists in space-time. It's a place, that most mythologies come from a very deep, what Carl Jung called the collective unconscious. Okay, in other words, it's always there, and there are truths or archetypes that repeat. Okay, Robert Fraser was talking about how the floating bridge repeats in other spiritual traditions, but Osensei, kind of founded the Aikido more along the Shinto metaphors. So right about here, then we're kind of like boom, right? So spiritual, ethereal, matter, dense, heavy, boom. But standing right in the middle, right there. In other words, the actual larger spiritual ideals, the actual functional sense of being here. The second I go out there, to try to move him, I'm stuck in matter. And he's bigger, stronger. All right. And if I float off there, I mean, it's a point where spiritual ideals and, right. Right. So right about here, boom. Right between the two. Boom. Between the two. And he said that, that was, to really understand Aikido and do Aikido, you have to stand on the floating bridge of heaven. And of course, none of us pay attention to that. We get caught up in the material, or, we study the philosophy. Okay, so what we're going to do a little bit, just off the line here, right? And right about here, I'm a little too in the physical or too metaphysical, right in the middle. There's a place of freedom and harmony. Okay, so let's just experiment with that. So I'd like you to, we got 2 and 2, so let's go. Yeah. Yeah, one of the things, for example, here, if you're coming in this way, right? That's matter. That's dense. But then again, the world of spirit is very abstract. Right in the middle of it, right in the middle of it. There's something going on right there. And so the spirit matter, you can think of it that way, heaven, earth. He is positioning within that, for, with some people, Osensei talked about the floating bridge. So if you're, or why don't you get yours? Okay, just yeah. All right. So if you're coming in this direction, then, right here, that's physical, that's heavy, that's dense, and then there are spiritual ideals or whatever it is, but right in the middle of it, there's a zone of freedom. The zone, I mean, you can't really, love when it's forced on you is not love. The freedom gives birth things like love, peace, harmony, right? So if in this direction, then we're kind of whatever the movement happens to be. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah. Techniques, like that's more of an EQ motion. Okay, if you're coming, okay, we go this way. Boom. All right, we go this way. The techniques of Aikido, for Osensei, they came out of his position there. Yeah. Now he obviously studied physical technique, Daito do jujitsu, other systems, but he just said, hey, this is very important. And he alluded to it. Most people didn't pay attention to it. So what are we going to do? He's talking about a place, in the mythological creation of the universe, in Japanese Shinto. Where is it? Well, he said, hey, this is more real than you are, this place between, like kind of the more spirit, the heaven, and also the earth, the dense. There's this place, where both of those things are in perfect accord and things move very freely. Okay. So, just thinking about the floating bridge doesn't do it. There's actually a sense of moving, integrating, finding how you stand there. Okay. All right. Okay. So keep going. Yeah. One of the things too is we first thing we do, we go and check that. But and then there's motion. You see what I mean? There's movement out of it, but it's a little different than I'm moving you, right? Things like circles, spirals, things like that sort of happen there if you that one up. So first thing we do, or conversely, we go, or spiritual dialogue. And he's saying, no, there's something very tangible right there. Tangible in a sense that it's probably more real than we are. There's this place, that we're supposed to find between heaven and earth. That's really, truly who we are. Just down here to make money and become president. All right. We're, nor are we supposed to drift off. We're here to find ourselves in the universe. Okay, and the floating bridge was a place that existed, before Izanagi Izanami, created the islands of Japan, which is symbolic of the creation, the physical creation. So if you're, standing, in a place, before matter and spirit, then all of a sudden things are very fluid there, right? And that fluidity is based upon a harmony, you see? And so, by the time I get into this, that's fine. It's a replica of it, in dense matter. But if we're coming in, we can go this way. Boom, boom. The movements themselves, boom, boom, boom. And so the ability to stand there, not theorize about it and drift off, or conversely, you just get caught up in, the actual physical motion is hard. So, the su, u, ah, o, u, e, re, I, ki. It's just something, it's my own personalization. I don't know if Osensei did it that way. But, in some sort of original place where there was non-being or whatever it is. And then the beginnings of a personalization of it, a consciousness. And from there, it separates. Spirit, heaven, earth, dance, and we're right in the middle. Access to that, grounded, but not grounded that way. And so, it's a place of creation. There's a real fluidity to it. So if you are coming in this direction, then see all the movements are right? Now, right here, I go out there, I'm caught up in the actual sense of the density of it. And if I just go into spirit in a very theoretical sense, but it's between the two. So there's weight there. There's kind of the philosophy of yin yang there, or heaven, earth, or water, fire, whatever you want to call it. But there's also the actual act of standing there. Okay, and Osensei said, is what did he say? Ame no aikido toいうのはame no ukihashi ni tatasaseru koto de arimasu. It's a matter of, really, this thing called aikido is just a matter of standing on the floating bridge. Okay. Okay. Let's come on in just a little bit more. We'll kind of do a quick recap as people come in. Okay. And so, we have a series of movements, the 30 movements. By the way, I have your certificate. Okay. I think I have yours too. So hopefully we'll do that at the end. But we have been working a little bit on the first couple of moves of that, and then going into something a little different. Okay. Which I don't know if we've ever done it here, but it starts out here. And then the next motion is rightward up, leftward down. And then there's kind of a more concrete personalization of it. And here, basically, I see it as you're setting coordinates. Leftward first, rightward next, back to the center, up, down. Coordinates. Okay. And so what we're kind of discussing is, the sense of Osensei, stand on the floating bridge of heaven. Okay. One thing Osensei said, he just said, Aikido to this thing called Aikido. Ame no ukihashi ni tatasaseru koto de arimasu. And Ame no ukihashi, ame no of heaven, uki floating, hashi bridge. Okay? Koto, it's a matter of ameno ukihashi. And you didn't say tatsu, standing there. He said, ameno ukihashi ni tatasaseru koto, which is a complex Japanese construction. That was kind of where I stopped studying Japanese. Okay, so, but literally, you must be made to stand. You must make yourself stand on the floating bridge of heaven. Boom. So Aikido is a matter of that. Okay? So one of the things that we're doing is combining that with, in a good way to attract attention, some good, possibly some weird, is to do the actual sound. So I'm asking you to kind of do it interior-wise, okay? Su, original state of non-being, something that we can't really comprehend at all. I'll give it a name, it's not that. Ooh, in the middle, it starts to personalize, but on a universal level. Ah, right word up. Heaven, spirit. Oh, left word down. Getting denser and denser into the matter realm. Ooh. Further personalization, not the first one. Ooh repeats twice. And now, since the whole thing is so fluid and elusive, we're setting coordinates. And Osensei would go re, e, gi. It's always talked about as e, but re, e, gi. Okay? So that's something that I do. So I listen to a YouTube lecture that Robert Fraser did. And, he really likes that. He done classes on it, lectures on it. And I thought what we'd do is start, because he says everybody with a staff, they go like this, and we do the first part of it, but just to kind of flesh it out a little bit. So before you start to think, before you start to conceptualize, there's something going on. Non-being, whatever you want to call it. Osensei apparently told Robert Nadeau Sensei, says, in the beginning it was chaos, but since that's all there was, you couldn't call it chaos. And the question is, was it really chaos, or just something that the human psyche, even an advanced one, can't really get? So we give it names. So, ooh, it kind of not in a personal way, but in a very general, universal way, it personalized. Su to ooh. And this is my interpretation of it. If somebody else says he's full of crap, they could be right. Now, from that original, it separated. Ah, right word up. Ooh, oh, left word down. Ah, spirit, heaven, whatever you want to call it. Oh, denser, 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 all the way energies, finer, finer to denser to this matter dimension. And here, but we personalize again. Ooh, but it's more of a personal ooh. And going left first, re, e, gi. Okay? And, it's kind of like that old Mission Impossible show. If you're caught, we will disavow all connection to you. So you're on your own, even though you're working for us, right? And so I don't know whether that's correct. It's just what I do. Okay. So let's try it a couple more times. Su to oo. When I grab su oo, su oo, ah, oh, ooh. More personalization. First one was personal but universal. Now it's more personal. Personal. Eh, re, e, ye. Okay. So see if you can put, it's a matter of coordinating the actual movement with the sounds. Su to oo, ah, oh, back to oo, e, re, e, gi. So try it a couple times. See if you can coordinate that. If not, you know, it's a matter of benkyo. It's a matter of study. But you may like it, you may not. Okay. And one thing that the Robert Frager, I was just watching this one today as I was eating breakfast. Okay. And, he just said, Osensei said, this floating bridge is where you basically start to personify your highest and deepest, truest sense of yourself in everything. So, if you take that up here into the realm of spirituality, you drift. But if you get caught up here, and most of the time we don't do that. We're just caught up in I, in this matter dimension, and we're dealing with a bunch of stuff, and we get caught up in it. And so, his contention, he was talking about, to some degree, a process that he had. And I'm not saying this is what he did. This is what I do based upon, some study of his movement and just sort of messing around a little bit with these sounds. So, if somebody say this is what Osensei, no, this is what Jack Wada does based on what he studied Osensei doing. Okay. All right. So, that qualifier. Okay. So again, we're kind of doing this motion here to the side. All right. Down there, that's matter. It's dense. Here we start to have a fight because I can't get my way and he's getting his way, and I resent that. But and I may also, just sort of drift off into the spirit realm. He may raise the stick or something, and like that, yeah. But right about here, between the two, there's freedom. You're connected to that and that, but you're in a balanced place between them. And the tendencies go here. Then you try to figure it out. Then you try to do it better. Or maybe you start to read about the philosophy, which is beautiful. That's important. But the actual sense of it. And how many people saw Ikkyo there? Boom, boom. How many people see Nikkyo there? How many people, for example, see Irimi Nage here? You see how all the movements of Aikido are based upon that primal, very original sense of freedom, balance, perfection. Freedom and love are very tied. If you're forced to love, love the 45th president or get put in jail. We're not there, thank God. But if we were, that wouldn't be love. Okay. But on the other hand, judge the 45th percent. Maybe that's not right either. You can have compassion for somebody who's pretty fouled up, which, I need a lot of work on personally. Okay, really. I'll admit that. But finding that place, and he said, not just stand there, all right? I'm just standing there. How come nothing's happening? I understand it. I know I can't just understand it. I got to be here, but nothing's happening. So my sense a little bit is, whatever the original primordial, whatever it was, before you give it a name, it sort of started to it started to be conscious, probably in a way I cannot comprehend. Okay. Later on down the line, boom, that consciousness personalizes even further into me. Okay. And out of that original bigger consciousness, there was a separation, heaven, earth, and then boom, a personalization of me there. And since everything starts to drift, we establish coordinates. Understanding is the U key, is the vertical. Ha, she is the horizontal. But e, re, I, ki is apparently the way Osensei phrased it. So that's what I do. All right, I'm correct. You could be saying, no, you're totally wrong. I suspect it's somewhat close. I mean, if you were smart enough and put in prison, you might, with no knowledge of Einstein, come up with relativity. All right? He would have credit for it. Look, I discovered this fantastic theory. It's already been done, but you're pretty brilliant. Now let's go on to the next one. Okay? All right. So I don't know if that's correct, but that's what I do. So what I'd like you to do now, what we can do is go to the other side. Boom. All right. And for example, here, how many people see Kokyu Ho in that motion? I'm moving now to my left. Boom. All right. Boom. How many people see Irimi Nage in that motion? You see, the flows themselves are part of that original freedom when we get the balance, when we stand there. And what sort of good does it do me to do that? I feel looser, freer. Therefore, I'm in a more loving state. My mind is not caught up in stupid little personal paradigms and judgments. It's freer to see things as they are. Now, I can get better at it. I could do this more. But, when I was listening to Robert Fraser talk, I said, I'm really lazy. And apparently every day, since I was at that, okay? He'd come into a dojo, he'd pick up a staff, and he'd do that. Then he'd start doing whatever he did. And everyone going, come on, we want to go out there and train. Why are you talking about this stuff? But he was addressing very important things for today. There's such a difference, or separation between the spiritual and the material. And there's so much divisiveness around paradigms and metaphors. And everybody, Osensei, we all come out of the one. Which means that in any tradition, which the way Robert Fraser put it, there is some sort of replica of the floating bridge. Osensei just used a Shinto model because he was Japanese and he studied that. So let's go here where we kind of boom. Okay, it's a technique. No? Standing from that original balance, things are fluid. There's an original accord that had with that. And by you standing, not attaching to that or that, you're a part of it. You establish yourself as the coordinates for that floating bridge. You become that in your own way. I don't know if any of this stuff is correct. I theorize that it's probably 60 to 70% somewhat correct. How correct does it have to be? I don't know. So I'd like you to go left, see what you find, but that's not the game out there. The game is you standing between the spiritual and material halves of creation on that place that Osensei stood as best we can. Okay? All right, so let's pair up again. Okay. Yeah. Do you notice any difference from the normal, okay, somebody grabs, now I'm starting to be able to kind of get the thing to move a little bit. It's a very interesting, if you just go into the thought philosophy of it, you drift. But if you go the other way, which is, you try to figure out how it works here. I think the sad fact is, most of the stuff that works here from the Aikido lexicon works off of jujitsu. It's torque, it's weight, it's pain, yeah. Whereas what Osensei was doing was categorically different when he called it Aiki, right? It's different. Or was it always different? Yeah, chances are. He probably learned this stuff from Takeda Sensei, and all of a sudden says, I can expand this out. And chances are, by the end of it, he was probably better than Takeda, much better, right? He just went in a very different direction with it because he had the guidance of Deguchi Sensei, right? And I think it was probably a real difficult thing because we're all attracted to matter, and then we have a spiritual sense, and they're very separate, right? And in his case, he kind of found that place, I mean, he wouldn't have mentioned it if any of us, if nobody but he could stand there. You see what I mean? Yeah. I mean, that part of it is somewhat crazy. It's like, I don't know, that old man talking about that mythical bridge. Why don't we just go out there and kick ass? You know, that's what everybody wanted. I mean, we still do. That's the whole crazy part of it, is that we still go for a limited paradigm, or conversely, we like the word, so we memorize the poems and feel spiritually superior to people who go out there and kick ass. So, you know, is that, you know, okay, I'm a liberal, I live in California, you crazy Florida person, you know, that still exists, right? And he's saying, look, this is not about that at all. It's not about being right. It's about, you know, not just where you stand, but where you create yourself to stand. You see what I mean? I mean, you know, the whole ritual, something original, so original, I can't talk about it. Like Osensei loved the, you know, the scripture. In the Bible, the beginning was the word and the word was. Okay, we give it a word. But in the beginning was, and then there was a potential as this and that separated. It still personalizes. It's not just random chaos, but it's probably more than I can understand. This way Einstein put it, I don't believe in the biblical God, I believe in the empirical God of creation. And I'm finding, my job is to find out its thoughts, because if I understand how that thinks, I'll understand the creation, because it came out of it. So he was a scientist who believed in God that way. So I think Osensei was that way. But his metaphors were not space-time and gravity and this and that. They were Shinto God, this as mythical places. Okay. And then from that more personal sense, although personal is universal at that point, still I can't wrestle with it. It's too big for me. But out of that, you know, we do it 1-2, but really it's simultaneous. Spirit and matter just separated out of that. Boom. And we're still there, but on a more personal basis than the first ooh. And since all of that is there and that way, and that becomes the coordinates. Now, if I just go, you know, I can go, I mean, I used to do this because I used to watch the NBA, and a lot of, you know, especially the white players who would do this until they shot free throws. Hey, my first inning is better. My mom says, we're not Christian, we're Buddhist. I went, oh, I didn't realize it was just ritual, right? That's kind of cool, you know. I mean, you know, that's not to put that down, but, you know, you just, yeah. I mean, a Buddhist is going to look at that and go, son, why are you doing that? Well, I saw it on an NBA broadcast. 2 or 3 guys do it before they shot free throws, you know. We're Buddhist, son. Okay, all right, I got it. And so the metaphors are the metaphors. So you know, and if you're, you know, a certain way, you're just going to go, oh. But you know, I look upon the universe. You know, I like to think I do much more than Einsteinian way. But we can also examine it more along the Carl Jung lines, that there is a collective unconscious out of which all these creation myths come, which says a lot about us. We all come out of that. And, you know, that's a more psychological approach as opposed to Einstein's approach. But, you know, what Osensei said, if we get, for example, here, boom, boom, he's heavy. Okay. But on that floating bridge, everything is very fluid and free. And it's a fluidity we share. So boom, I come this way, boom. And if I'm here trying to figure the algorithms for this out, I get caught up in my head, goes that way, in a very stupid, limited way. And then I get in trying to figure it out, but maybe I get a little better at it. But I'm still tied to old paradigms. Right about there, all right in the middle of it. All of that is that freedom that exists when we stand in that place. Then I'm free to really be myself. So I'm really free to explore things like love, compassion. You see what I mean? Then it's, you know, then a lot of stuff appears kind of stupid, right? I mean, Osensei wasn't a moralist. He just said, violence is overrated. In fact, it's destructive use of energy. And we all come out of one thing anyway. We all were originally on that floating bridge until we drifted off or we sank so heavy that, it's a shame. And we get caught up in our words and our metaphors or our beliefs and our judgments, and all of a sudden we got this mess. So when he said people should do Aikido, and he directed, physical training is important because you discover patterns of energy in the material. Good. But then we stop. And we get caught up by our personal this or that, Mention the name of the 45th president, and I start to go off on a diatribe. You know what I mean? And really what Osensei would say, look, yeah, that is not good. On the other hand, what you're doing, Jack, is getting caught up, and you can't stand on the floating bridge of heaven if you stand there with your hate. That's probably what he would tell me. So be easy with it. Yeah, there's a lot of weakness in the world, and it's all because a lot of people don't do the misogi to get us back to here. And if we can start to get a feel for that, then we can stand there more in other ways. We can see things more clearly. We can feel not just what we love, but feel compassion for things that we don't. I mean, that part of it is about, what Sensei said, Aikido is unlimited transformation. And after a while, I think it's pretty stark. We start to somewhat stand there, or we go back into our judgments and the stupidity of that heavy world with all the bipartisan polarity, or we drift off into a spiritual realm that is too drifty. So the Aikido training is very important if he's coming in this direction. And just movements like this. You see Ikkyo there. Well, you see Kokyu Ho here, right about here. You see Irimi, okay? Those are forms that, by the time we're down here, are replicas of that original freedom. Okay? So, yeah, we're still going to honor the forms, If you're going to file your taxes, there's a form. If you don't file your taxes, there are consequences. Why in the world make an enemy out of the government and the IRS? I mean, so there's a world of form here. But then there's a world of judgment. And then there's also the spirit world, which is, I really want to be out of here. I want to be in that. And I think Osensei thought that way. I think you say, okay, there's this place. He's very revolutionary that way. He was an activist when he was younger. He did not let the government buy up shrine property just so he could give it to the wealthy. He fought. He didn't let the government disenfranchise the fishermen in Tanabe. He stood on the dock, said, if you guys come and try to stop these people, I'm going to throw you in the ocean. Yeah, I mean, literally, right? And he fought for the rights of the settlers in Hokkaido, He was an activist. He wasn't some dreamy guy. I mean, he had a feel for this, I think, through his whole life. And then he met Takeda and he understood how to move energy. And then, he cleaned it up by studying with Deguchi sensei. Yeah, Deguchi says, you're grateful to your teacher, Mr. Takeda, but your path is very different. Okay, so, his mission was to show us how we could stand there. Okay, so keep going. And, I just did this thing today, because I listened to Robert Frazier, and I realized, that I do this, probably I could do this more, but I don't because I'm lazy. Oh yeah, I do it today. Nah, no, I'll see what's going on with the Warriors. How the Giants are doing. See what I mean? Mind goes very, very easily into every day. And that's fine. But on the other hand, we're also conscious that we are there. And that words like peace, love, compassion, understanding, Under heaven, only one family. That's basic Bruce Lee, not Osensei. But the truths come again and again. And they're not just words, but we all come out of this place. Potentially, we all have the potential to be here, the truest version of ourselves. And if we did that, the world would be very different. Heaven on earth, Tengoku. We'd be here in the material density of the creation, and it would also, be heaven here. That's another way of talking about the floating bridge. All right, the actual sense of it, since it's elusive. The second I have a thought, pulls me into there, or I drift. So, to some degree, the training is just to teach us how to get that original alignment and how to function from it. And that's about it. Once you're in that freedom, see the forms of Aikido unfolding. Now, you might want to get a black belt and everything like that, so you train and you kind of, you memorize the forms so you can reproduce it. There's nothing wrong with it. We have a early movement kata, or not a kata, but a misogi, for that reason, okay? And so when we do this, I mean, it's ironic, but if he's coming in this direction, then I'm going. See, the point is that right here, I get so attached to doing it right that I start to do this. Then I start to question and go up there, and I start a separation, which every action I take is either going to get me into being stupider here, or more into the separation, which causes the anxiety. I know things should be better. Maybe I should be doing something else. And all that do is create a lot of self-doubt. All right, but if kind of freedom, the only way he sees me is light anyway. He sees my reflection off of the sun's rays, and therefore but if I, I mean, if you see Osensei, a lot of times he's here, he goes there, and then all of a sudden, boom, he does stuff like that. He's playing, he has the command of the universe, the physical one, at a much dimensionally finer level. But he also has a functional sense of the spiritual truth of things in himself, and is integrated. I pull off a couple of tricks, but it was a point where Robert Fraser was saying, I don't know if anybody's going to ever be able to do his Aikido, because he was so dedicated. I'm still pissed off the Warriors lost 2 nights ago, and I mean, that part of it is like, okay, too much attachment. So sometimes, you have to look at things. Yeah, you have to have a personal life. Right? On the other hand, it'd be nice to, illuminate that personal life from the floating bridge of heaven. Right? Right? Be able to, my granddaughter pass on the spiritual ideals and be there as a loving grandfather. And encourage her to be her best, truest self. Tried to do that with my daughter. I did a pretty good job. Okay. Okay. Anyway, keep going. Okay, let's go back. Yeah, as people come on in a little closer, okay? And since, as people come in, which is good, we're just going to do a recap. Why don't you come in a little closer, Yu Chen? Yeah. Okay, yeah. That's the other thing about the floating bridge of heaven. What do? We hide. I hide in matter with an opinion about everything and a judgment, and constantly just bump into, wait out there for things I want but can't get. And then, all this energy comes in is emotion that oftentimes just leads to more judgment, can lead to physical conditions. I can make myself sick. All right. And conversely, I hate this so much, I drift up into a spiritual realm that has absolutely no connection to this. Okay. And Osensei's thing was stand on the floating bridge of heaven. So we're going to reenact that original thing, okay? So right hand. Okay, even before this, there's something. There's a primordial whatever. And this is more than my human mind can conceptualize. People like to give it names. And Osensei probably would call this Su. It's a sound, it's vibration. Then all of that pulls into this point. And this is where the Big Bang starts. So everything or nothing, focusing everything into that point. But let's not forget, that whatever it was in that action of everything or nothing into everything, it became more conscious. I think what most people call God is that original consciousness, because the thing before then is way too much. And if you were to say this is, it's you, but it's you on a big universal level. Okay, so Su point, that personalization. Now, rightward up, that original place separates. We do it 1, 2. That's spirit, that's heaven. Leftward down. Those are energies that get denser and denser until right we're where we are, world of matter. We personalize further. First was very general, universal. This is more personal. Now, leftward first, re, ji. Okay? The coordinates. Okay? So going over it again, and we could do the actual sound, but we might attract weird energy. So, we're keeping it under wraps. Su, ah, oh, re, ki. Okay? And Osensei, apparently, according to Robert Schweitzer, he did his version of that all the time. You could do it with a fan. You could do it with a bokan. You could do it with a staff or spear. Or he could just put his hands together and do it. And most of the Aikido movements that we see, they're part of ritual Shinto. Okay, which is good. But the misogi that Osensei did apparently was very different. And what is misogi? I'm caught up in this matter dimension. My senses are clogged by I. Okay. I get judgmental. I'm under stress. Boom. So he said, cleanse your senses, including what he called the mind, which Mary Heine says is probably men. There is a feel, consciousness to all that. You don't have to understand the original Su. It was too vast, so it just went everything into one point. Su. But then it personalized. But that wasn't just the point, it was everything. And then from there, it separated. It went in 2 directions simultaneously. We're doing this one first. Heaven, spirit. Oh, matter, earth. And right between the 2 of them, there we are. That's a personalization of us, not the original Su to Now, re, I, gi. We're just setting the coordinates. U, ki, floating, vertical dimension. Ha, shi, bridge, horizontal dimension. And here we are. And we come out of that original thing. When it got into that point, everything got really hot and dense. And then about 14 billion years ago, expansion started. If you listen to that crazy song on Big Bang Theory, wait, why? Because we forget that original personalizing is universal. That itself, I don't get, my human mind. But in that state of everything going into that point, creating the space or consciousness, what was in that point starts to divide. Half of it, and this is 1, 2, but it's really simultaneous. Spirit, matter, heaven, earth. And there we are, boom, on a much more personal basis with a mission to accomplish. And so let's just check our coordinates. E, re, I, gi. You could use u, ki, ha, shi if you want. It would probably work. There's a lot of things that work if you have enough of an original design to it. That crazy theme song from that comedy, I was thinking, basically in that the bare naked ladies singing that song is a reenactment of a lot of the original Shinto prayers. Literally. I'm going, wow, because the truth always wants to shine. Okay, so I want you to again, since and this you can't really review enough. You might get bored. Okay, but go through it. Go through the movements. Su to u, ah to o, u, e, re, I, gi. Just try to do it a couple times. Okay. Yeah. See, certain things are recap. Well, Sensei would apparently take a class over. He was Osensei, so if you're the teacher, wouldn't say, "Get lost, old man." And then he would get out there and he would talk about these things. And he would demonstrate some stuff which was very advanced. And most everybody in there was pissed off. They wanted to exercise, they wanted to do this stuff. And he was kind of trying to pass on, to transmit the essence of it. Now, Robert Fraser was an American. So, he was not like, okay, Japanese martial art. He was like, he had a psychology background. Oh, this guy's doing some really cool stuff. My other original teacher was Robert Nadeau. And, he was a cop, but he quit to go to Japan. But he's doing things like judo and karate and yoga and meditation in the 50s. So they're both Americans. And they go, there's a lot about that old man that his culture doesn't get. And so they said, wow, a lot of Nadeau sensei's work came because he asked those sensei questions, and most of the Japanese were too afraid to. And I was listening to this broadcast today, and somebody asked Robert Fraser about Nadeau sensei. He said, yeah, and I was a translator for a lot of those sessions to him, right? Because I got a chance to be there. Fraser sensei's Japanese got really good, as did Mary Heine. Sensei. They both studied at Keio Daigaku, Keio University. But right about here, we're coming here, we're going right with here. That's the world of spirit. That's the world of matter. And then that's the world of spirit. But right between the two, there's freedom. And that freedom is harmony. I'm going to have a gun. I'm a cop. You're free to do A or B. You're not free. In fact, you might say, you got gun, I got bazooka. Bam. Okay. Well, fair is fair, I guess, I'm not coming out anti-police. It's just there's a lot of stuff with, the trial going on right now. But one of the things here, for example, she comes in over here. This is the world of matter. And we're in it, and I get pissed off, and then I can hide that by drifting off into spiritual. But right in the middle, there's freedom. Okay, and the interesting, I'm not making her do stupid things. She's feeling that freedom, yin to my yang, yang to my yin, whatever you want to call it. We're both exploring that freedom together. You see what I mean? It's not about, okay, I'm going to make her be a puppet. No, I need her. Because other than that, I can drift off in my ideas. She's matter, at least part of her. And so I can make that mistake, but can I correct? Well, I can make this mistake, but can I correct? Standing on that floating bridge, Osensei said, that's what Aikido is. Everything else, all the forms, all the ranks, things like that, are really incidental. That's the primary lesson. Of course, it's, its own way, it's pretty mysterious. So what I thought we'd do, for example, let's go back here. This world is very threatening. So I try to escape it and just go into my ideals, and oftentimes it swats me down. You see Ikkyo here? How many people see Ikkyo? We've done this one before, but it's a good one. See, I'm looking out there. I get caught in the material. Feel. Come on in. Come on in. Oh, good, good. Okay, now I run into the weight. Boom. Now, do I have? How do I reconnect to it? I run into weight. I'm trying to figure out in weight. Now, I don't want to drift off into spiritual dialogue. It's just a matter of, say, if you get a feel for that freedom of standing there, you get caught up in hate and judgment, especially towards yourself. And if we could spread that message, the world would get along a hell of a lot better. Okay, that's why Osensei created Aikido, was to get everybody to have their own way of standing. And then, there would be gender equality, racial equality, economic balance, and everybody'd be more like an artist creator at what they're doing, as opposed to, just the way things are. So let's go back again. I want you to, again, she's important because, right here, my first thing to do is try to go out there and figure it out. Okay. There's no figuring that out. It's just part of the freedom that you get when you are standing in that space. Freedom frees your mind up to do much better stuff than get into judgment and emotional anger. And it frees your body up to not have to win all the time. And you can just say, hey, this is pretty cool. Okay? So let's rotate, work with a different partner. We'll just do that off the line. But we've done the floating bridge metaphor. See what happens for you. Okay. Okay. Yeah, we're okay. Yeah. Yeah, one of the things that we all get caught. Okay, in other words, here, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to habitually go out for the weight. Then I'm going to try to do the weight better. I can learn tricks and everything like that. Or conversely, I go into what am I missing? Maybe I ought to read more about the philosophy. But this sort of thing is, see, there's an original, and right there's more weight there. Good. I get a chance to see that it's very fluid with itself, which is different than I beat you. Now, we are all equal partners, yin to yang, yang to yin, so there's polarity there with it. And that freedom will free me up to be a more loving person, will free my intelligence from a lot of stupid judgment. Emotionally, I'll be a lot more open, as opposed to, I mean, basically, what's his name? Can't call himself anymore because his brand is so bad. So he's now the 45th president. Okay. And, there's an area where I can get started, man, all I get denser and stupider. I'd like to give him the gift of anonymity by not caring at all, but being conscious of the fact that you keep your eyes on certain things. All right. So if we kind of go this direction, I'll go the other way. Right? First thing I do, see if you do something right here. You're working with somebody, which David isn't. He's a sexist, racist. It's like, you can get into a fight or conversely. You can interact with them, and you may not change them in the spot or ever change them, but they don't have to bring you into an antagonistic state. One of the things about being a little better educated or whatever it is, you're aware of all the stupidity in the world, but it exists for a reason. And instead of fighting it, maybe we can enlighten it a little bit. I mean, that whole thing about standing on the floating bridge, somebody Osensei talked about every time he was on the mat. And people go, yeah. In fact, from what I understand is that, he's lecturing, right? And so people go this way, and people in the front office go this way. Somebody's standing guard going this way at the entrance, meaning don't come in. He's talking about the floating bridge. You can't train. So, there was an area where people didn't think that was Osensei. It's like, not really. What he was doing was so different. That's why I said I was always grateful that I started with a couple of Americans. So I've gone to Japan. I mean, I trained in Shinto. You get caught up in the Shinto and the Japanese metaphors. Well, Sensei belongs to every culture, every tradition. He's industrial level Bruce Lee. Yeah, he was primarily Wing Chun, but on the other hand, he was in some pretty great, right? And he was into liberation, not into conquest. Because the freer he was, the better he was. The better he was, the more he was long, becoming even more free or more liberating from this or that. So yeah, I mean, it was about development. And so, at that point, we start to look at things differently. Okay? I mean, how differently? That's a good question. I was listening to that thing on YouTube today. I was going, wow. I was looking at where my mind usually is. I was going, holy crap. In the pandemic, in financial this and whatever it is, that's where my consciousness is. And at some point, I'm better than that. We're all better than that. And so, if we only get that one thing, it doesn't necessarily going to solve it, but the ability to shift. I mean, if you're going to stand on the floating bridge, it's just that bridge. And everything comes through that bridge in that position. And as he put it, I got to stand there. No, I got to lecture. I got to listen to this old man lecture about stuff I don't understand, where I want to go kick ass on the mat. No, it's like you have to make yourself stand there. You have to create yourself with the proper sense of yourself to stand there And if you're an inch off, or I'm an inch off, it's not that place anymore. But it's the place is, it's like pi between dot, dot, dot. It doesn't change. What it does do is we change, we drift. So just able to hone in on, and that's a, so the crazy Sue thing that I do is that I went, I should do that more. That's what I was thinking. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, keep going. Okay. Now, and that's hard. That's really hard. So we have the world form. But we're going to go through the 30 movements. Okay. And I don't refer to it as a kata, but I call it a misogi or a gyo. There's Japanese words meaning it's kind of it's sort of like preparation for standing on the floating bridge. In fact, the first couple of movements are exactly the same as doing the Su ritual. Okay. So movement number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is both up and down. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. Now, each of those movements is contained in the freedom of standing on the floating bridge. But that's a big task, so we have a set, okay? So what I'm going to ask is David, why don't you come out and lead everybody? Okay, Steve, why don't you lead? Okay, good. Let's see. Let's. Yes, yeah, come on, have a seat. Let's see. Anthony, why don't you come out? Okay, Cliff, want to take a turn? Okay, good. Let's see. Yu Chen, you want to try it? Okay, good. Okay, certified. Okay, let's, okay. Um, let's see, we're kind of nearing kind of the end of the class. Um, those of you that know it, it's easy to forget, okay? And it's, so we have levels of certification. The first one, in other words, you know the movements. If you stop practicing it, you'll forget. So I kind of certified in 4 levels. Okay, so the second one is that you can begin to do the full set as one move without getting sloppy. Okay, so that's something that's supposed to be an outgrowth of the first level. First level is just the form, the numbers. Second level is that the whole thing begins to be one count. Okay, so if we kind of go on facing the way we don't normally do, but just watch. Everything is one movement. Without getting lost out there. So the point is you do your checkpoints on the 30 just the basic moves. But then you start to kind of venture out, see whether you could do the whole thing as one move. Now there's 2 other levels which I'm not going to get into today, but since we don't have like the Q exams and the Don tests, which do motivate people to train, right? So we came up with this certification program. Okay, so that's about it. Good job. Okay, you're the first woman from the dojo. So I want you to pester Meng and say, Meng, I'll even help you if to learn it, right? If you want to get together on Zoom or together, or she can call somebody else. Everybody here has been certified. You don't have to be a black belt to be certified. Okay. Any questions? Any questions on the part about the floating bridge? Anybody? I'll post that YouTube interview with Robert Frazier on the dojo Facebook stuff. I'll also send it to the dojo mailing list. Frazier Sensei, you could argue, nationality notwithstanding, might be on that intellectual level the most intelligent person in Aikido. Nado Sensei is a little different. He's a little bit more like, his stuff is a bit more intuitive, and his language is as bad as Osensei's. You try to understand what he's talking about. We get into these things on the phone where he gets angry at me, and he says, "No, no, no, no." And I said, "Well, look, Bob, you're not clear what dimension you're playing. So I'm talking about dimension N, and you're talking about dimension Q. We better make sure." So yeah, I can see your point talking about dimension Q, but I thought you were talking to me about dimension N. So we go back and forth on that stuff sometimes. But try the Misogi ritual. That was something that Osensei did that nobody else valued. The two Japanese I understand that did were Abe Sensei from Osaka and Hikizuchi Sensei, who was one of my major teachers. This stuff is just never really taught as part of the curriculum at World Headquarters. Robert Frazier got a certain amount of influence because he hung out with Osensei, traveled with him. Okay. And I had a personal relationship with him, ditto Nado Sensei. And Robert Frazier also, we actually spent some time at Shingu training together. So he was exposed to Hikizuchi Sensei, who was much more of a, be honest with you, that can also kind of mess you up because it was so into Shinto and so, Japanese, right? It was fun to see sometimes the thing in a different cultural context. And Frazier Sensei also studied with Kato Sensei. And I know for me, I didn't really work out with Kato Sensei, but one thing he did do is, he taught me, basically the Yonkyo and the Gokyo changes. And he kind of did his version of this. I kind of do much more of what I see Osensei doing. So if you feel like it, this is not like, because what it is the actual standing on the floating bridge is about freedom. Now, there's still the restrictions of social laws and whatever. You're not free to go out there and start bashing people over the head. But that means somebody who's that sick is not free. You're free to be very human, and you're free to be very wise and compassionate. And within your own training, you're free to introduce, and we're studying it, uke nage, yin to yang. The nage represents the fluidity as the center. The uke represents that fluidity as the circle. And they're both important. And so, ideally, I don't do it so much these days, but you trade roles. You're the center, your partner becomes a circle. Okay, your partner becomes a center, you become the circle. Uke to nage. It's the same thing. That's why Osensei said it's not about fighting. Okay, so anyway, I have a meeting right here. So, but I thank you all for coming. Pester Meng, we got to get another woman certified. Okay, all right, yes. Oh, just a second. Yes. And yeah, well, become collector's items because they're not Tokyo certified, but okay. What do I have? Oh my God, did I not? Anthony, I think I might have left yours in my printer. So I'm going to have to do that next week. Okay, so please make sure that, all right. But anyway, we do have, and this is a certificate, which means that, it's for level 1 of the 30 movements. I don't refer to it as a kata. It's a Misogi Gyo. Okay. Gyo, kind of a cleansing. Misogi, they're similar. All right. And again, what I teach is staff, but it also has a slant towards the spear. So level 1 of the Misogi Gyo for Aikido spear and staff has been awarded to Cliff Winnick. And this was all the way back on February the 20th, so I apologize. I put a piece of Osensei's calligraphy and a photo of him using a 3-section spear. a lot of the staff movements, a lot of Aikido movements come out of the spear. Okay, most of the Taisabaki these days is taught as sword. Okay, Osensei's movement, for example, if he's coming in, a spear, boom. This motion, boom, boom, spear movement. When I watch Osensei on video, closest I'll ever get to actually just being able to see his movement, all his movements come off of the changes of the spear. Even his sword movements are not traditional. They come out of their combination. Yes, he's using the sword, but he is also, his body changes are spear. And so what I put in the kata or the misogi, the gyo, whatever you want to call it, I call it misogi gyo because I'm fancy. I like the different, I like the semantic difference. But it's a different kototama. You know, if you say kata, it's like, you know, and if it's a misogi gyo, and you've had some experience of standing of whatever level on that floating bridge, is transformative. Okay. So, Cliff, this is a folder for you to protect that, whether you want to protect it or not. Okay, it's yours. So congratulations. Good. And I'm going to congratulate you, Chen, for being certified today. I'll get her certificate done, and I'll get yours out of my printer. Okay, thank you. Okay, let's bow out. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, yeah, good job today. We covered a very important topic, and I kind of touched on it maybe from a level that I tend to value. And sometimes it comes through weird to me because I'm trying to reach out there and try to convey it. But for me, that's what I'm dedicated to. I don't do it anywhere near as well as Osensei did, obviously, but that becomes a very important thing because his message is standing on the bridge. You have the spiritual sense of it. You also have a grounding in the physical dimension. But it's not ground that ties you here because you're suspended between. And that's a realm that he addressed as total freedom, the emptiness of a circle. And things like love and compassion, wisdom come out of that freedom. And so as we learn in our own way to stand in our version, I can't stand the way he stood there, but to stand as you stand there, then I think his message is alive. We can't copy him, you know? I watch Superman and I can wave my hands, but I can't fly. Okay, so, there's a point where the Superman can inspire me to be more who I am. It's an archetype. And Osensei, for me, is an archetype. I never met him. I've met people. And so for whatever reason, listening to Robert Frazier talk, it kind of brought Osensei alive this morning in a way that was real different, just through Frazier Sensei's words. So I'll post, it's an hour, 20 minutes. I got to go back, but it's question and answer, but the actual lecture he gives is brilliant. Okay, thank you. Anyway, thank you. Thank you for waiting. I do a class. Yeah. Hi. I'm vaccinated and everything. So if you're vaccinated, then we can shake hands.
Yeah, this is my lecture.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Did you need a rest or something?
I'm sorry. What?
Do you need a rest? Can you just offer the class?
Oh yeah, you can come in if you want.
No. I mean, you need to take a break.
Do I what?
Did you take
No,
a
no,
break?
no. I'm okay. I'm anticipating this. So
Okay.
yeah,
Is
I'm
it
in.
your stuff?
Okay, okay, this is yours.
No, no. Maybe
No.
we go.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
how the
sure,
people,
sure,
right?
sure.
Okay.
Let's
Yeah.
let me get myself so I don't
Yeah.
forget it.
So,
Bye. Okay, so I'm gonna pick this.
bye.
Yeah.